truth is, all of us need a little help from time to time. But what's the business case for actively coaching, mentoring, and upskilling a whole workforce? We've actually known the answer for a while. 15 years ago, the research firm Gartner found people were promoted up to 6 times more often when they enrolled in a mentorship program. Retention rates also shot up among those in the program. So the question today isn't, do mentorship and upskilling work? It's, how do we create the right conditions to get the best results possible? To help explore that question, I'm joined today by 2 esteemed guests. Annette Richardson, founder and managing partner of Richardson Partners, LLC, and Suneet Dua, chief product officer at PwC. Thank you both for joining us. So Annette, I'd love to start with you. Upskilling and mentorship all begins with the right mindset. We can't get people to do different things or develop new habits unless they're approaching the work with a different attitude, a different position mentally. Can you talk to me a little bit around the importance of mindset and what are the critical mindsets people today need to bring to their jobs?
Yeah, so I'm just going to take a little bit of a macro view to the mindset. It's really an investment in human capital that organization at a sort of, global, international, local, and national level has to take. And really investing in people is really key to, future market. I talk often about investing beyond nutrition and health and really investing in quality education, jobs, and skills, and a lot of the global issues that we are faced today. There is mounting evidence that unless organizations strengthen their human capitals, countries will never be able to achieve sustained inclusive economies and growth. So we have to prepare the workforce for highly skilled jobs of the future, and we have to be competitive in the global economy. So that's really the cost of inaction around upskilling and often reskilling is going up. And we saw with COVID-19 that we could potentially lose a decade of human capital gains, and leaving a generation behind. So this concept of, leaving no one behind is really important.
And Suneet, what comes up for you there? I know you're big in the digital space and helping people become digital citizens or natives and more upskilled there. Talk to me a little bit around the mindsets that you feel are as critical.
Yeah, Chris, thank you. And I'll leave what Annette just said about leaving no one behind. We just did a hopes and fears survey in the firm at PwC. About 32,000 employees were interviewed. 77% said they want new skills. They need new skills. And 60% are worried about the digital automations that are coming out there. So it's the mindset has to be there from a CEO perspective, but the mindset really needs to be there from an organization wide. And leaving no one behind, I think that's what we did with our transformation. And it's really important because you have to make sure you provide all the digital channels for the folks to really not just acknowledge themselves, but truly upskill themselves, which is really applied learning. And one of the things the CEOs are really concerned about is they're concerned about key skills of their individuals. But one out of 5 CEOs in our survey showed that they haven't done anything about it. And Chris, as you started, the why is pretty easy. It's the how, and we're trying to help companies work through the how. The how is not that hard, and you have to get started because it's our fiduciary responsibility to take care of our people.
77% is quite staggering. It also shows that people are eager. They want to learn. They know that the game has changed and they need the help, as you said, the how. So I'm going to get to the how in a second, but let's talk a little bit about the what, shall we say. So when we talk about the skills that are important, what are those skills? Suneet, I'll keep it with you for now. What do people need to know right now? What is it that they need to keep their eye on and channel that energy into?
Yeah, so Chris, I think there's about 8 to 10 digital disruptive technologies out there that are going to create all these new skills. So if you put digital behind any job right now, the job and the role has changed. A controller yesterday, and you put digital controller tomorrow, a digital controller in a finance organization is going to be doing data visualization. is going to be doing data reconciliation, has to become a data steward, as well as going to might apply some workflows or RPAs into their processes from order to cash or quote to cash. That's the different skills that we need our enterprises to embrace. Now, when it comes to AI, ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning, wrangling large ton of data, that is a skill set that I think everyone's going to need to have. Data scientist is going to be a household name in every organization, and that's really important.
Annette, I'll pose this to you. When we talk about upskilling as a way into performance and boosting performance organization-wide, what's that link? Why does helping one individual multiplied out increase performance? What's kind of that tissue, that connective tissue?
This notion of collaboration, this notion of global markets. I mean, you can no longer operate on your own and in a box. And I think you have to be top performing in a global economy. People have to feel connected. There's got to be disruption at sort of any level, including human experiences. That's really, really important. So this, your previous guest talked about, the nexus of team and collaboration, and it's, I think, at the core of top performance and upskilling. We are talking politically and economically about competition from China and other, markets, even frontier markets. And I think this is paramount to really keep in mind. PwC and Suneet's team has developed an extraordinary solution that can really sort of change the way people become much more performant around the world.
About 75 million roles or jobs are going away in the next 2 to 3 years. But about 133 million new roles and jobs are new that are coming. What we're trying to explain to corporate America or the global CEOs is, one, you have to embrace that. Two, you have to teach these new skills that we just talked about, and your employees have to become what we call lifelong learners. Once they start becoming that, and as you started, Chris, they will graduate to me a digital citizen. That's where we then transact with automations and bots, right, on a day-to-day basis.
I believe Annette brought this up, at least indirectly, and I want to probe a little deeper. When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think the equity piece is often a little tougher for people to intuit. But it's a really crucial point, and I want to spend a little time talking about it, because it really is, when we talk about global learning and upskilling, that's the piece that we're talking about when we talk about equity. People need to feel like they're a part of it, they're along for the ride. So, Suneet, I'll pose this to you first. How do we help everybody, especially in post-COVID when we're talking about a hybrid workforce, as we saw in the last session, how do we help people who are in the office, some mixture of both, feel like they're part of the same goal as their colleagues who are working in some sort of different arrangement?
Yeah, Chris, I actually think the pandemic has truly helped and accelerated at scale this notion of lifelong learning and this digital learning. In the pre-pandemic, most folks had a curriculum, or they went to some different schooling, or they had a benefit around that. The currency of time wasn't there. Post-pandemic, everyone's recognized that, okay, I can do a lot of things as well as put time aside for myself and my family. And that time that they put aside is to take care of themselves from a mental capacity perspective and give them the skills they need. And the beauty of what Annette mentioned is, what we have built is around how do you give individual curated learning of really good content so they can apply it to themselves, right? Which is either micro learning or applied learning around capstones and events like that. To me, that's what the pandemic has really helped us with. And it's also disrupted a bit of the schools and colleges that have been doing the same thing for 170 years, has made them change a bit, which now, as the systematic changes are happening, folks will embrace more of this, what I would call micro learning, and taking care of their mental self in this next fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add something to that. I think there's also the importance. I think organizations have realized that the perhaps didn't have the workforce that they needed to have in a time of crisis, right? And I think that is fundamental to the shift that is needed, or the mindset that is needed in the context of a hybrid workforce, or in the context of a remote working workforce. Then those talents have to be performing at the highest level. And I think that is very unique. It's a unique opportunity to take advantage of. I believe that there will be other pandemics. I think this is not the first one, and it's obviously not the last one. And I think rethinking how can organization be ready for the next one is really important.
You teed up my next question perfectly, Annette. So how do we do that? We're now at the how, right? It's where the rubber meets the road. So Annette, I'll keep with you for a second. What are the first steps? But if you want to take it and blow up the answer, give us the master plan, please. I'm sure we would all like to hear it.
Well, I think you have to follow Suneet's footstep. I think he's found. I'm very sort of solution driven, so we're looking. I understand what the issues are, and we're looking for partners and sort of that have the solution. I think it's an evolving space, which is going to be fascinating over the next probably 5 to 10 years. It's a continuum. I think that it's lifelong learning. But I think if we can begin sort of moving populations of workers, and I'm thinking about entrepreneurs in emerging markets as well, into a place where they will become their sort of greatest potential to be more productive citizen, I think that's the key. So these are technologies that are to watch and to integrate into any organization now, so that you're sort of ready for the future and not waiting for the next pandemic to happen and then be in the same sort of predicament again.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and Annette, thanks for the tee up. I will tell you, Chris, let's dispel the myth of it's not hard to start. I think that's the hardest piece. That who do I start with and when do I start? You don't have to start with everybody, and you should start now. I mean, that's the easy part. The first step is truly planning. You have to baseline your organization. You have to know what you have. What you can't do is you can't fire everyone and hire a whole new staff around automation and all these new skill sets. You do have to reskill the current skill sets you have, because they have great industry knowledge and process knowledge of your organization. So that baseline is equally as important. But once the baseline is done, then you have to create a gamified view or an approach how to take that company or the organization or the function to that digital journey. And if you set those end goals with the ROI behind it, and the ROI doesn't have to be heads out. The ROI is revenue per productivity. It could be other features, even culture or the culture index or attrition should be part of this as well. Once that's defined, then you got to create what I call the digital channels. And that's why we built our platform ProEdge, individualized learning channels. You do have to learn, right? You have to teach the new skills. They're not magically going to come. And once you teach them, you have to give time to the individual so they can learn. You can't ask them to do a 9 to 12 hour day and then do 2 hours of learning at night. That's not learning. So what we built in the firm was we call them infinite learning days. We give 3 days additional off to our staff so they can start taking time to learn the channels that we've given them, so they can bring that back to the firm. So those are some of the couple steps, Chris, that we took. We made a lot of mistakes, but we saw a huge success where we have over 270,000 people being upskilled in our firm right now.
We actually got a viewer question that I think ties nicely to this. This person says they're looking to build a team that'll produce AR and VR solutions, but it's really hard, they say, to find people who are skilled in that area. So their question is, do they mentor their existing people, or do they go looking for expensive talent?
I think the answer is in the hybrid. I think one you have to do is that baseline of what is the skill of the AR, VR that they actually need from the organization, and what are the outcomes that they're looking for. If they can figure out the outcomes that they're looking for, then match it to the skills, and then whatever the gap is, there's enough content out there that can close that gap. And if that gap's not solved by the individual folks, then I would then go hire those individuals. Now, think about hiring people in your organization. people who want to come to your organization are excited. So you have to excite them on why should they come there, and you're going to take them on a journey.
I wanted to pose a question around learning, which is, should it be mandatory? Should it be optional? What are the ways that you get people's buy-in so that they want to do it, but they also do it? You know, they have to want to do it, and they have to do it, even if they don't, perhaps. So Annette, I'll kick that to you.
I think people have an appetite to learn. I do think that the way they learn and what they learn, I think, will depend on the quality of the content and the distribution of the content. I don't think that learning is an issue. I think the tools to learn, I think, will become more and more, more and more important in the future.
I agree in that, and I would say learning and in education tech right now, content is like a pig's breakfast. It is all over the place. It's not really geared to the individual on their job of applied learning. And I think one of the things that we're trying to change as a firm, which we realize from our own mistakes, is you have to capture the heart and then the mind to make them to make the individual learn. And you have to create the time as well. But it has to tie to the job that they're doing or the job that they're gonna be doing. And if you just teach them code and they don't apply that code like Python, then they're not going to enjoy that learning, right? It's just going to go on the shelf. So we're trying to make it sticky from that perspective, and I think that's where the digital divide is so wide. And to close that divide, you got to put it into applied learning.
What I'm hearing from the both of you is it has to feel compelling. The stuff has to be great. It has to feel relevant, but it also has to be delivered through the right terms. People still might feel like it's separate from their actual work. It has to feel integrated, shall we say. And I think you've given us a lot both to think about, and all this complexity. One thing is certain: this moment won't last forever. And so if leaders want to make big changes, whether it's around human skills or closing the digital skills gap, now's their time. So thank you, Annette and Suneet, and to you for watching.